What's the Word podcast? Now we back in action. Had to make sure that Wi-Fi was set up. Again, we got a great show today. We got the legend himself, Master Ace. I'm gonna tell you right now, like, you talk about a catalog. I mean, this dude been putting in work for 30 years, 40 years. You know what I'm saying? So definitely looking forward to this. We had a great show last week. Beanie Siegel, I got a lot of my supporters that hit us up and, gave a lot of love to the show. So shout out to him. But today, we got the doubleheader. So we got Todd Davis in the building. Got Master Ace coming through at 5. And then we're going to sign off after that for a few. Hop right back on. And we got Daddy Yo coming in the building. So definitely going to be a dynamic episode. A lot of substance, a lot of everything, homie. You know how that goes. So definitely welcome everybody. I appreciate the support. How'd everybody like the Nelly and the battle yesterday? That shit was hot. I see Master Ace has joined us. Let me go ahead and get him in here. Boom. Get him on. We good to go. Yo, peace. What's up?
What's going on, man? You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. How you doing, homie?
I'm good, man.
Man, appreciate you joining the show. I was just talking a few minutes ago about your extensive catalog that you have. But first off, salute to you. I hope everything in this COVID, you and your family's good. Everybody's good, man. Again, appreciate you taking the time.
No question, man. Thank you. Somebody walk by you with a Atlanta Falcons vintage old school jersey? Can I see that?
Hey.
Where'd he go? He left?
Walked outside real quick. Hey, Boo, come here real quick.
He got a Steve Bartowski on. What he wearing?
He want to see the old school jersey real quick.
Hold on. This is yeah, man. What's up, man?
Oh, Dion. You got the neon Dion on?
He knows it.
That's dope right there.
This my nigga Diar Lansky. Hey, that's the legend right there. That's the nigga that got the niggas and Mexicans together with his music. He was in this the legend, man.
We already know.
Juice Crew.
Let's go.
Y'all get up for Donald Trump supporter right here.
Get your ass out of here, man.
We love him.
Nice jersey.
He don't make
he said nice jersey.
Yes, Boogie Pump for sure, loved one. It's always salute.
All right,
so either way, I gotta ask, obviously, with your catalog that you got, what do you think's been the biggest factor in just being that consistent that you are? Especially a lot has changed since you started.
Yeah, I kept putting music out. A lot of my contemporaries had these, classic albums or classic singles that they could really just rely on and kind of fall back on. I never really had, in my opinion anyway, had that record or that album where it was like across the entire genre, an undeniable joint. So I just kept putting out music. And I think that has a lot to do with my longevity, because each time that I dropped a new record, starting in 2001 when I dropped Disposable Arts, every time after that when I dropped, it would be a whole entire new group of young fans, usually around high school age or first year college, that were just discovering me for the first time. And so each time I dropped a project, it was a new group of young people that would discover me and then grow older with me along the way. So right now I have fans that are, coming to my shows in Europe anyway, 17, 18, 19 years old. And then I have people that are 30 that will come into my tours, my shows 10 and 15 years back, that still talk about Disposable Arts and A Long Hot Summer.
Yeah. Now, how did you change through that too? Because as you get older, your style morphs. Did you have to adapt at all, or you just stayed centered and stayed you?
I just became more realistic and more introspective in terms of my approach. It wasn't really about fronting on records and talking about how dope you are, great you are. It's more, I was getting older, I've become, grown man. So I spoke about things that a grown man my age could relate to. And I kept it on those topics. which was interesting that the young people would have gravitated to it, but maybe they got some insight into somebody my age still rapping, and hopefully I did it in a skillful way, and that's what drew them in.
And I like that you said skill, because I think that's a big conversation that people have nowadays is the skill still there? Now, obviously, there's still good music out there. You just got to look for it.
Right.
But a lot of people say, well, now it's the beats and not the lyrics and everything. But, you know, skill is a huge part of it. Whether you like somebody else's song or not, you know, if there's skill to it, I mean, that's what it is. Who are we to say what kind of music other people should be doing?
Right.
But when it comes to your skill, I mean, how did it start? How did you become so universal?
I've always, I came up in an era where it was always about trying to be different and stand out in some way, not sound like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that I think kind of gets confused with the younger generation, because they listen to what's on the radio, and then they go in the studio and try to make a record that sounds just like what they heard on the radio.
Yeah.
And it all kind of starts to sound like the same thing. The messages, the energy, the bounce is the same. And we were always all trying to find our own bounce, find our own groove, our own little lane. And that's what I loved about kind of what they call the golden era of hip hop, is because you could have a huge tour with 7 artists, and all of those artists might be completely different in terms of their style, what they were rapping about, how they dressed, their message, everything completely different, but it still worked because the fans came out to see all of it.
Yeah,
and I miss that.
A lot of them had even different fan bases as well. So
Absolutely.
The concert would be incredible.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, golden era. We love it. But I got to ask you, we in 2020, so what's up with you? What's new? You know, future endeavors later this year. What's going on with you in the present?
All right. Well, I just dropped the album in 2018 with Marco Polo, album called Brooklyn Story. And that was very well received by the fans. We just did a tour this past January, February. We were in Europe touring with that album. So it's like the second year of touring with that album. And the plan was to continue to tour with that album throughout the rest of this year while working on the new project.
Would you be now if it wasn't for this?
Not at this moment, but I would have stuff lined up. Like there were dates, there were U.S. dates that got canceled, that were supposed to happen, in March and in April that got canceled. So, Marco's been sending me music consistently over the past several months, and I've stockpiled a nice batch, probably like 10 or 12 beats that I like. And so, I will gradually start to write to those beats. Mm-hmm. and sort of anticipation for this next project that we're going to drop.
And Marco stays busy. I know he just recently also released his other drum kit, the Type kit. He just released a new one too. I mean, he stays super busy.
Yeah, I mean that's when you're an underground artist and you're not on the radio every day, you have to find different revenue streams, different ways to continue to pay the bills, especially during the pandemic when there's really no work happening. So you got to diversify. I have my website, mastace.com, where I sell all my merchandise, my vinyl, my CDs, my hats, my T-shirts. All of that is on sale there. I'm continually doing feature work. People reaching out to me for feature work, so I'm continually doing that. Mm-hmm. And got a few other things that are in the works behind the scenes. And I'm also working on a hip-hop musical that I've been writing for the last couple of years. And we've gotten to the point where we had our first table read, like literally like the week before they had the quarantine. We had our first table read where we sat down in a room with a bunch of actors who really just came in on the strength and read the parts so that we could kind of just hear it, what it's going to sound like, so that I could make tweaks. And that was a very successful first table read. I went back and now I'm working on the songs for the musical, but all of these things are things that are happening while on this lockdown I'm working on.
And it's interesting to say that. We had last week we had Beanie Siegel on the show, and he was talking, book he's doing, and the transition to that. So I got to ask, as a musical, how was the transition from, obviously you've put albums together, conceptual albums together and everything, but what was the transition like to do something like that?
I mean, well, I did have some experience writing scripts because I've done a bunch of concept albums, and on each of those albums, I had to write out, character scripts for the people that were going to play those characters in the skits.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a little light, experience doing that. I'm already a storyteller by nature, a writer by nature.
Of
So
course.
those parts of it were fairly easy to me. But as you get into it and as you start to write, um, the format of how you got to write it, you have to use a particular, program application to put it all in place. And you have to
Mm-hmm.
learn that. Um, and then as you write, you like as I was writing it, I was getting better. And I didn't go into it knowing, okay, this is the beginning, middle, and end of the story. I sort of shaped the story as I was writing it. So as I got to the end of the script, I had to go back to act one and reread everything because the story changed as I went. So I had to go back and make adjustments. And
Yeah.
so that's a challenge, obviously. And then the music part of it is, you would think that might be the easiest part,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm used to writing songs. But the
Yeah,
difference is with a musical, the words that the characters are rapping um, have to push the story narrative along.
for sure.
So I'm used to being able to just kind of go anywhere I want with the rhyme. I'm over here with it. I'm bragging. I'm this. I'm that. Where there's no real boundaries, but the script forces you to stay
Mm-hmm.
within the lines, and so you have to come up with clever lines that still help tell the story that you're trying to tell.
Yeah, I was fortunate. My older sister, she was a big Broadway fan.
Word.
So as growing up, the things we would do together is I would go see plays with her. So
Okay.
I grew up going to, pretty much any musical that you could imagine. So I know the structure was difficult. I mean, and were you a little more self-critical on yourself on a new venture like that? Because it was kind of foreign to what you're usually doing?
I'm critical anyway. Even if I'm writing a song, I'm critical. I'm always trying to improve it, make it better. I'll go in the booth and lay down a verse, lay down two verses, come out, listen to it, and then change a whole bunch of lines. I don't like how I said that. I don't like that part. I'm gonna fix that. And that's my process. Marco will tell you when we worked on the last album, I came back and did some songs. I came back and did 3 and 4 different times because I wasn't happy with all of the words. And I might have just came in and just changed a few words, but redid the whole thing because I didn't like the way I sounded when I said it. So that's the process, though.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now I heard, I'm trying to remember, but did I hear whispers of a Juice Crew movie maybe coming through?
It's whispers, very quiet whispers.
Okay.
There's nothing solid, tangible right now. It's just talk. We'll see. It probably would be more of a biopic than a in theater movie, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So what's the plans when all this dies down? How it's going to die down? I know we don't know yet, but
All right.
what's in the future for you, my brother?
Just that, finishing the musical and starting to write to some of these Marco Polo beats to get this next album ready to go.
Yeah. Was it now? I got to ask about this musical again. Is it tough finding people to fit these parts?
We're not even there yet. It will be tough though
Yeah.
because
Imagine.
you have to have somebody with stage experience. You would hope to have somebody with some stage experience because it's not like being a movie actor where you get 3 and 4 or 5 takes. You gotta hit it when right
Yeah.
on the on. You gotta be on point. So somebody that has the ability to do that, that's one. And then two, they have to look the part and be able to personify that character in the way that it's written.
Yeah.
And then three, they gotta be able to rap. And that's where it gets tricky because not everybody can do all of those things.
Yeah,
Some people are great actors, never rapped a day in their life, and trying to teach somebody to follow a cadence, it can be tricky if they don't just have natural rhythm, and they might not be comfortable with it. So these are going to be challenges, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying, that we're going to have to but we're not at that point yet.
Hip hop a lot of times, has such a swing that it's exactly like you said. If you don't, if you can't catch it on that particular point, it might not be a quantized musical 4/4. If you don't have it,
Right,
you
right.
know.
I think what I'm going to probably do, we're going to record all of the songs,
Yeah.
and then release the songs like kind of as like a soundtrack to this forthcoming musical, but the fans will already be familiar with it. So then when we find the actors, they'll be able to listen to my lyrics being spit on the song, and they'll know exactly what the cadence is and what the words are, and that might be an easier way for them to learn it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I got a question on here. It said, lyrically, where do you draw your inspiration?
um from my life.
Yeah.
If you look at the last probably 4 or 5 projects, every single one of them in some way has pulled from my life, stories or pieces of my life story.
Hmm.
That's what I always go back to. M.A. Doom, Son of Yvonne, which was the album I rapped over M.F. Doom beats. That album was me going back to being a 12-year-old kid and bringing the audience into my life as a 12-year-old kid, and my relationship with my mom and what was going on during that time period. And The Falling Season, which came out in 2017, 16. That album was taking you into my high school years, from beginning to end. It's me walking into high school as a freshman, not knowing anything, and graduating at the end of the album, graduating from high school. And what you got in that album was my high school years, what was happening around Brooklyn, what was happening around where the school I went to, the racial tension in the neighborhood that I went to school. All of that stuff it's all in that album.
Gotcha. That's what's up. I also saw one that said, what's your like bucket list career moment that you had so far?
I'm not there yet. I feel like
Amazing to hear.
there's more. Feel like there's more to the story that hasn't been told yet.
So I mean, how being in the game this long, you have you ever just got to that point that you just were like, man, I got to chill for a minute? I mean, you work so hard. Like you've always worked so hard. Like it's just unbelievable. I mean, how did you not just run out of, especially the way it's transitioned, run out of steam and just run out of, like, damn.
I mean, this is my livelihood, and you can't run out of steam when that's your livelihood. That's what's keeping clothes on your back, roof over your head, and gas in the gas tank.
Yeah.
So no time to be talking about you tired. You got to work. As soon as my wife got pregnant with our daughter, all the way back in 2004, I knew that what my mission had to be, and that was to be just full out, all out, let's go.
How do you feel about some of the hip hop nowadays? And I don't mean to get into like real hip hop. I mean, just, what are some of the good things you feel about it, as well as some of the new artists, even with the bad, but what's your basically overall perspective of what's going on right now?
I think just like in the golden era, there's some good, some bad. Like, people kind of over over glamorize the golden era. Like, there was no whack hip hop happening in the 90s. There was plenty of terrible music going
Mm.
on. There was plenty of commercial pop sounding stuff that just nobody who really loved the culture loved that music, but it sold millions of copies. That really happened. That stuff was really so. I don't feel much differently now than I did then. There's some good and some bad. You just have to. It's your job as a fan to find the good stuff that you like to feel the vibe, and that's the stuff you listen to. The rest of it you just ignore.
Yeah. And you know, I love that you said even back in the day in the quote unquote golden era that there was bad stuff too, because there was really bad stuff. I think
Oh yeah.
that too though, when you buy albums back then though, you actually had to go buy it to to hear it. So even for the bad artists, you could at least say that was really bad. I bought the album, I didn't like it, and
Yeah.
it was at least different from other people to where I mean, a lot of these artists, they just really sound the same. Their whole cadence, their whole beats, everything sounds the same.
Yeah.
What where do you think that came in to be popular? Because there was definitely a shift somewhere. I just can't really call where it was.
I mean, I think maybe some of us dropped the ball in terms of teaching it the right way, or I think we thought that the younger cats would just see what we were doing and just know what to do,
Yeah.
and a lot of them really didn't know what to do. Um, New York radio played a big role in how things have changed. At least I'm speaking strictly for New York artists.
Okay. Yeah.
New York radio, we were very rigid back in the day because New York, it's the place where it was born. It's where the first records came from. We led the way, and every other market, the South, the West, Midwest, they all followed New York. They tried to basically do their version of what we were doing,
Mm-hmm.
and we rejected all of it. That's whack. You don't know how to rhyme. You have no skills, and so at a certain point, so much rejection. Those markets just decided, you know what? We like our stuff, so we're just gonna rock our stuff here.
Yeah.
Forget about New York. We ain't trying to prove nothing to them no more. So each one of those regions, that's what they did, and those artists became huge where they were from, and then that spread throughout the U.S. It didn't really make it to New York, but it spread throughout the rest of the country. So now you have all of these artists from the South that got no recognition in New York that are now popular in the Midwest, popular in the West Coast, and
Mm-hmm.
they're all supporting each other. New York's like, nah, it's terrible. We don't like it. It's whack. All of a sudden, everything shifts. Commercial radio. All of a sudden, those Southern artists, those West Coast artists, start to really dominate the radio.
Circulate for sure.
They started dominating the radio, and all of a sudden, we're like, oh, so New York DJs not wanting to be behind, the curve. I got to start playing this stuff because it's getting spins everywhere except here. So they started playing it, and then all of a sudden, we got a generation of young people growing up to Southern sound and hip hop. Not even playing. They stopped playing New York artists. They stopped playing artists that sounded like they were from New York. They only started playing the down south stuff. And so it gave birth to a generation of young people that when they turned on the radio, that's all they heard. So they assumed that's how you do it, and that's how we're gonna follow that. So now we got all these young artists, young, 20 years old, doing trap, rapping over trap beats, not realizing that that's for a region. That's not from here. That's not what we do. But that's all they know. So that's what they do.
I mean, is that what's on? And I mean this as a real question. Is that what's being played in New York radios right now? Because I know
Oh,
LA.
100%. 100%. 100%.
So it's the same curriculum probably that they playing over here on the radio.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
You sound depressed now. What happened?
no. But the thing is, though, I have a conflict with it because I believe too some of it is because it's easier to make music now with the technology and to get
Definitely.
it out. So it's such a double-edged sword because I love the fact that real hungry independent artists can put a little bit of money together and really try to do something. It was so hard to make music back in the day. We didn't have the computers and stuff, so it was really hard. So it's such a double-edged sword for me because I think a lot of these artists that sound like everybody else and this and that, if it was really tough to do the music, they probably wouldn't do it.
See, the good thing about it being hard to do is that you didn't have to worry about everybody doing it.
That's what
there was a way to weed out the guys that weren't talented because they wouldn't get past. If they went up to the station and they were like, "Yo, here's my record," they would listen to it and go, "This is garbage," throw it in the trash, and it would never be heard by anybody.
ever.
But now we have the digital era, and like you said, the technology has allowed, Joey in his basement can just make a song tonight and put it up on SoundCloud and spread it throughout the world, and you get a whole bunch of other little kids that don't know the difference, or maybe just like it because it's funny or quirky or whatever, and all the kids start sharing it with each other, and then maybe they're just laughing at it, or joking on it, or goofing on it, and before you know it, the guy's at 3 million views, and now you got labels going, oh, it's 3 million streams. Oh well, maybe we should give this kid a deal. He's got a fan base.
But
That's how it happened.
It is. I see shit that literally is like parodies, and people post it like, look, it's not supposed to be a parody, but it becomes one on the internet, and it's like, look how whack this is,
right?
And then it gets 8-10 million views.
Yeah, I saw something like that the other day. I don't even remember the name of the artist.
It's like, man, hey, share this shit. This dude's really trying to do something. Like,
now here's the bullshit, right? I stumbled upon, somebody sent me an artist similar to what you're talking about. They were like trying to use, I guess, auto tune, but they pitched it up real high. The dude sounded like a mouse, right? And it was hilarious. It was bad. It was so bad that it was hilarious. So I watched it and I was like, are they serious? And I went to see if it was. I looked for another video from the same artist to see if maybe that was just a joke of a song. No, the next song was the same thing. So what did I do? I shared it with like 5 people. Yo, you got to see this. It's terrible. Check this shit out.
It just.
But I just helped the dude. I just gave him streams.
No, for real. Hey, what's crazy is this was a couple years ago, but I saw one of my homies repost a Lil Yachty song. Okay, and in the post he wrote, "This is hilarious," and like little emojis and shit. So I clicked on it, and I'm listening. I'm like, yeah, this is. I thought it was somebody that had stripped the audio from the video and laid their own funny one making fun of them. But it was
the real joint.
It was the Minnesota joint. But I was literally watched the half of the video, and I thought it was somebody like at home that like did a voice dub over on it. I was like, are you kidding me right now? But hey,
you helped them.
Exactly the point. So definitely, look, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. We wish you the best of luck this quarantine. Can't wait for the albums. Can't wait for the musical. That's really exciting. And again, we were talking to Beanie last week, and he's talking about these books and these scripts. This is exciting for the culture.
Yeah.
This is definitely what we need, and what kind of what we've been talking about. You progressing into that page to do something different. And I think that's really what we need right now.
It's time to take my writing someplace else to see where else I can flourish. That's all.
Yep, absolutely. So, man, salute to you. I really appreciate you. Apologize about rescheduling, but man, they went to like 7 o'clock, and I knew once Nelly started messing up, I was like, oh man, this is gonna go long, and I want to get everybody that we could on there because I know they had a lot of viewers.
Of course, no question, man. Thanks for having me on. Shout to my man. I saw my man Ice was in here from Ice U Rock. He was on my Slaughterhouse album, and him and his brother Unique. So I saw him on here. Shout out to a couple other people that was just throwing shout outs and questions. But yeah, man, good looking out. And
man, I really appreciate you. Salute to you for what you've done for the culture, because it's just irreplaceable, and there'll be nothing like it, and there is nothing like it. And I'm gonna tell you, man, when like sitting on Chrome and Born to Roll, I'm from LA. I was born in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
When that dropped out here, you might as well have been a West Coast artist. I mean, people
thought I was. People thought I was.
I know. I remember, and I'll never forget. Like, man, that's when the speaker boxes were live, and it was just. I'll never. And I was a teenager, and never seen anything like it from an East Coast artist on the West Coast. I mean, for real.
That's cool, man. That's cool. You got Daddy-O coming up next, right?
Yeah, we got Daddy-O at 6. I split you guys up a little bit because I know Instagram tried to cut people off and stuff like that. So I want to make sure,
Well, shout them out for me. I haven't seen them, I haven't been able to see them and dap them in quite a while. But, You know, we go a good ways back. I was a big Stetsasonic fan back in the day.